think this is going to be one of the best shows we've ever done.
Go after the gun store.
She reminds me of a bouncer at the back door of a bad jazz club.
And I know you've taken $855,000.
Donald Trump is very much alive.
So who doesn't have any accomplishments now? How you doing, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is September 8th, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, on YouTube, on Locals. Share, subscribe, tap the notification bell. And if you live in Australia, you can see me live in October. That's right, October 18th, I'll be in Melbourne. October 21st, I'll be in Sydney. October 27th, I'll be in Brisbane. And probably a couple other stops, going to be doing a bunch of media. All that good stuff. You can go to daverubin.com/events to get tickets, and there'll be special guests and kangaroos and koalas, and maybe Crocodile Dundee will show up. We haven't booked him, but anything's possible. I hope you had a great weekend. It was an interesting weekend for me because coming back is just a weird thing. It is a weird thing. It takes us all a little time to get in the flow, get the vibe going just right. I didn't want to go too hardcore on the things that were annoying me, but I think we got out of the gate pretty well. So I feel like now we can really just get back into old-fashioned Rubin Report stuff. I went to Sage Steele, my friend Sage Steele's wedding in Nashville on Friday, and it was just such an unbelievable celebration of love. And that has nothing to do with anything going on politically, but it is just so nice when you see two people who actually love each other, like getting married. And it was second marriages for both of them, 6 kids involved. It was like a Brady Bunch situation. Tons of great people there. And it was in Nashville. I had a hot honey chicken sandwich for breakfast at the airport, which probably not the best thing to set you up for a productive weekend outside of the bathroom. But anyway, here we are. And we're going to talk mostly about murder and mayhem because there's a lot of weird stuff happening. And I have no doubt you can already guess what story we're starting with, especially if you have a phone with social media, because there was a murder that took place on a bus in Charlotte that apparently happened in August when I was off the grid, but it is only over the last 2 or 3 days that the story around the murder, which is quite horrific, has gone viral. So we can't show you all of it, obviously, for demonetization purposes and algorithmic purposes. We are going to show you some video. A 23-year-old girl, she was a Ukrainian refugee. Well, you know what, I'll just read the tweet here and just play along with us. This is from Colin Rugg, and you're going to see some video. There she is. Authorities release footage of a Ukrainian refugee getting stabbed in the throat in a random attack by a career criminal in Charlotte, North Carolina. Absolutely horrific. 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska fled Ukraine seeking safety from war and hoping for a new beginning, only to be attacked on the Charlotte light rail. Her life was cut short thanks to 34-year-old Decarlos Brown Jr., who has been in and out of prison for the last 15 years. Okay, so there you have a 23-year-old beautiful girl from Ukraine who came here fleeing a war. Now, again, this happened in August. It went viral over the last couple of days because they finally released that video, and it's unbelievably, even though you don't see the actual stabbing right there, and there's certain corners of the internet, if you want to see it, like you can find it. It's unimaginably horrific. But it went viral because they released the video finally, and now it's bringing up a lot of stuff, because what did we discuss mostly last week? Well, there's all of these stories now around the violence that took place in DC. So Trump brought in the feds, and now what's going on in Chicago, where he's doing the same thing. And there seems to be this tension now, of course. There's always a certain amount of tension, but tension between the federal government and particularly the blue states. Now, we'll have more on her in just a second, but this the man who did it, it was completely for no reason. His name is Decarlos Brown, and yes, he was a career criminal. 16 mugshots. I'm not going to do the joke I did the other day about how many different faces you can make in mugshots. 16 times this man has been arrested. He sat on a bus, and there was a young woman in front of him minding her own business, and he stabbed her and killed her. Now, of course, we're going to get to the racial component of this because unfortunately, everything is through the lens of race these days because of our, I would say, derelict mainstream media. But before we get to that, listen to this from Charlie Kirk. We called the monster who killed Iryna Zarutska a career criminal. How did we ever get to a place as a society where we even have a category for career criminals, so much so that the phrase is used regularly without thinking twice? What an absurd thing to tolerate. Career criminal, in and out of jail for 16 times. We will find out more about the mugshots and everything else. Listen to this from Stephen Miller. The Democrat Party at every level, judges, politicians, academics, nonprofits, is organized around the defense and protection of the criminal, the monstrous and the depraved. The more vile the threat, the more vociferously the Democrat Party works to protect and enable it. Look, this is one of those things, before we continue, and we'll have something from the Charlotte mayor in a second, where it's like, you don't want to go right into politics, right? You don't. This is a young woman, like there's a political angle in that she was a refugee from Ukraine first. There is something political in that, just in and of itself. But you don't want, when a random person is murdered for no reason, you don't want to immediately make it about all of the culture war stuff. But this story, because he's black, because she's white, she's an immigrant from Ukraine, but that's not going to fly with the progressives this time because protecting a black violent criminal is going to be more important than protecting the Ukrainian refugee. The way the media is hiding the story, the way it's only being picked up on X, et cetera, et cetera. This really has all of the markings of sort of the perfect storm of so many of the things that are screwed up in society. So now, listen to this, also from Colin Rugg. Charlotte Mayor V. Lyles' issue statement on the woman who was stabbed in the throat suggests that people aren't being respectful by sharing the footage of the incident. Charlotte residents can rest assured, however, because Lyles says she is, quote, thinking hard about what safety really looks like in her city. And this is the quote. The video of the heartbreaking attack that took Iryna Zarutska's life is now public. I want to thank our media partners and community members who have chosen not to repost or share the footage out of respect for Iryna's family, she said. This was a senseless and tragic loss. My prayers remain with her loved ones as they continue to grieve through an unimaginable time. Like so many of you, I'm heartbroken and I've been thinking hard about what safety really looks like in our city. I remain committed to doing all we can to protect our residents and ensure Charlotte is a place where everyone feels safe. Look, I've never heard of this woman before, the mayor of Charlotte, V. Lyles, right there. That statement is completely insane. Connor, can you put it up for just one more second? Because think how insane this is. She first thanks the community members who did not share the video. Before talking about condolences and everything else, it's first, thank you people who did not share this thing. What? By the way, speaking of not sharing this thing, well, black man kills young white girl, particularly pretty young white girl, which is another subtext to this. And that means the mainstream media is not going to cover it either. This also from Charlie Kirk. Dear CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, ABC, NBC, et cetera, if you want to know why your ratings are in the tank and no one likes you, look no further than the brutal murder of Iryna Zarutska, who moved to the U.S. to escape war in Ukraine, a story you refuse to tell. Sadly, she couldn't survive the Democrats' criminal justice system, yet you wouldn't shut up or stop villainizing Daniel Penny, a hero who probably stopped a murder just like hers. Why? Because he was a straight white American male and the perp was black. Shame on you. Genuinely, and of course you can see the juxtaposition of those images. Daniel Penny, who was a hero, who was on that subway as that man, was threatening people and screaming at people and all of these things. The media tried to destroy him. And of course, what you see is the moment before Iryna was killed. So look, this, as I said, it brings up all of the stuff because you've got the racial element, you've got the refugee element, you've got the blue city element. There's like just the general criminality element. You have the fact that the media is not covering certain things. You also have to the backdrop of when the media does get the racial calculation that they want, that we end up having literal revolutions in our street. I thought this was good for Men Wokeness. George Floyd OD'd while resisting arrest. He got a golden casket, a folded flag, nationally televised funeral, statues, and a movement. And yeah, you may all remember this. You remember this? Nancy Pelosi and the rest of these absolutely ridiculous clowns on their knees in Congress in the middle of COVID, where they were also telling us, you remember where many public officials were telling us it's fine to go out and protest without masks and be in mass protest movements and be in crowds and everything else when you're protesting, because that somehow supersedes public health, even though COVID was a complete farce and everything else. They just lie about everything. And that's what happens, of course, when you put ideology above truth. When ideology is more important than truth, you could be in the midst of a pandemic and it's like, oh, but if you see a moment to prove that America's racist and everything else, you'll say, okay, pandemic lower, proving racism or faux racism more important. This is interesting from Matt Van Swal, who's an ex-commentator. Here's a list of all of the news networks and this is as of September 7th, so this is yesterday in the morning, he put this out. Here's a list of all the news networks who have not covered the Charlotte, North Carolina story. New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, MSNBC, NPR, USA Today, Reuters, Axios, ABC, PBS. Every single one of them wrote stories on Daniel Penny. Do you get it yet? You know, it's interesting because they also all wrote stories about Jussie Smollett. You remember that? That was a complete hoax when Jussie Smollett, a Hollywood actor, pretended that he was lynched while eating a 6-foot sub at Subway by two guys that were screaming, "This is MAGA country," and it turned out that they were black guys that he hired, who I think might have been gay porn stars or something like that. It's all just completely insane. You know, years ago when I was writing Don't Burn This book, I wrote about fake news, right? That was when Trump years ago was talking about fake news a lot. We don't even say that phrase anymore because it's just baked in that it's all fake. And people think that fake news is like, oh, the headline doesn't match the story, or they're just lying about something, or they literally like misquote something, or they take out the word not or but or whatever it might be. But what I wrote in the book is that the most nefarious type of fake news actually is when the media ignores something. That's a type of fake news. If by omission you are not getting the true holistic story of what's happening in the country. So every time something that doesn't fit the narrative just gets hidden, or if something really does fit the narrative, it gets elevated, well, then you can see how the scale would be completely out of whack. And when the scale is out of whack, people do crazy things, although nature does have a way of healing. Listen to this from the New York Post. GoFundMe has yanked sickening online fundraisers for the maniac accused of murdering a Ukrainian refugee on a North Carolina train after the Legal Defense Fund sparked widespread outrage. The fundraising pages selected Decarlos Brown Jr., a career criminal with no fewer than 14 arrests, is just as much of a victim as Iryna Zarutska, the woman who's been seen being knifed dozens of times in a random attack. Helping the 35-year-old homeless suspect would also support the fight against racism and bias against our people, one fundraiser reckoned. And there is the guy. He will likely be a Democrat mayor soon enough who murdered this random person. So now let's get to the issue that we do talk about here all the time, right? We've had a running joke on the show for years about how many people get shot in Chicago. Not that it's funny that people get shot, but it's amusing, I would say, at some extent, that the media just ignores this stuff because it doesn't fit the calculator. And if you talk about black on black crime, or if you talk about black on white crime, you are called a racist. If you talk about the almost non-existent white on black crime, then you are made hero by the machine. This is super interesting when it comes to cold, hard numbers. This is from Amiri King, who's an ex-commentator as well. You want to know something that should make you very uncomfortable? White people are victims of black violence at insanely disproportionate rates. It's not even close. Between 2017 and 2021, black on white violent incidences totaled 2.38 million. White on black totaled 0.37 million. That's a 6.4 to 1 ratio. Annual victimization rates per 1,000. Whites by blacks, 2.4. Blacks by whites, 1.8. Per capita offending rates per 1,000, blacks against whites, 11.6, whites against blacks, 0.38. That's a 31 to 1 ratio. For homicides, according to the FBI in 2019, black on white, 566, white on black, 246. That's a 2.3 to 1 ratio. Too long don't read. A white person is 31 times more likely to be victimized by a black person than the other way around. Black people make up only 13.6% of the American population. And then he wrote, "Tell me we aren't being hunted." And he links to the references below. Look, the race stuff is incredibly dangerous, and it's been incredibly dangerous for a long time. And I certainly wouldn't want anyone watching this and being like, man, black people are hunting us, let's be racist against black people. We shouldn't be racist against black people, duh. You also shouldn't be racist against white people. So if you are in the media right now, what you might want to do is start addressing reality. Instead of, oh, had it gone the other way, right? So let's just try it the other way. If it had been a 23-year-old black girl and some random white guy, forget Ukraine or anything else, but it was just a 23-year-old, very pretty, because there is an element related to that in this. But let's say a very pretty 23-year-old black girl was sitting on a bus and some random white guy who'd been arrested many times, or even not, just some random white guy just stabbed her multiple times in the neck and killed her. You know what would be happening right now, right? Kamala Harris, is she's still around? Or all of these people, they would bring back Joe Biden's bones to have an intern tweet for him, and Barack Obama would be out there, and everybody would be out there telling us this is proof of what a racist country we are. They'd be going on about slavery, all of the things. We're all racist, we're all evil. There would be people in the streets. There's just no doubt they would try to relaunch BLM, like the Hamas riots are down a little bit right now and they need to turn something on whenever they want. They would have people out in the streets and everything else. It would be covered by New York Times, NBC, ABC, and everything else. So this disconnect, this is what I think we're struggling with at a society that we don't know what to do with. This disconnect between what is actually happening in the world and what the media seems to, or what the machine seems to want us to see or not to see, depending on the narrative. The disconnect there is freaking huge at the moment. Elon Musk, however, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, he did buy Twitter, then Twitter, now X, and he allowed us to see a lot of this stuff. So he retweeted the piece that I just read for you right there with those numbers, and he said, did you know this? These are just the facts as reported by the government. One can argue about what the solution may be, but the facts are accurate. So that is the point. We can all argue about what is the solution to inner city crime? What is the solution to drug crime? You know, and we can talk about sanctuary cities, and we can talk about the lack of policing, and we could talk about all of those things, like how do you fix these things? Now, actually, I think it's fairly easy to fix, which is why we don't have it in Florida. You arm a populace, you teach people what's right and wrong, you have proper policing, right? Like you have a culture of freedom and flourishing, and then things start getting better. But in these other places, they don't do it. And now here's perhaps, I don't know, well, it's just as equally as bad, I suppose. Example of that, this is Philadelphia over the weekend. Here is a woman executed in broad daylight. We'll see what version of this we can show you, but take a look.
Video appears to show 3 people involved. It looks as if one woman is trying to get a man off of another woman. Moments later in that same video, it shows the man point a gun at the woman on the ground.
Oh my God!
Okay, so now it appears they all seem to be black there. Again, I don't care about the race. But why is it you're not going to hear? Why will there not be anyone on MSNBC telling you the name of the woman who was just executed right there, executed in the middle of the street? You're not going to know her name because they don't want you to point the gun, so to speak, the proverbial gun at the guy who actually did the shooting because he happens to be black. And if we're not going to get over that, get over it. I mention it all the time. Nobody in mainstream media is willing to, even now they're still not willing to touch it, as we've just illustrated. But I remember 10 years ago when O'Reilly and Hannity on Fox were the only people talking about it. I was on the Young Turks at the time, and then every time they would talk about it, that fat ogre would be screaming about what a racist Sean Hannity is. And it's like, you're not racist for telling people the truth. And actually, the truth is colorblind. And it's you people who are obsessed with color that ironically have become the racists. All right, we're going to connect this to everything going on in Chicago and what Trump is doing to try to stop some of this, because my general suspicion is that most Americans just would like to go about their day without being shot or executed or raped. That's a general thing that I'm on board. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, Tax Network USA. If you're stressed about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline or your books are a mess, don't wait. The IRS is cracking down and penalties add up fast. 5% per month, up to 25% just for not filing. But there's help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, employees, small business owners, even people who haven't filed in years. Messy books, no problem. They've seen it all and they know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll start with a free consultation, and if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. They'll also help protect you from wage garnishments and bank levies. So don't wait for the next IRS letter to show up in your mailbox. Take action now. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave to talk to a real expert at Tax Network USA. That's 1-800-958-1000 or tnusa.com/Dave. Take the pressure off and let Tax Network USA handle your tax issues. You know, you guys know I'm always happiest at the end of the show when the show is funny, right? Like that to me is my goal. You can watch a lot of shows for just like kind of straight up what happened with the news. I'm obviously giving you my take and it's a slightly different angle than other people and all that stuff, but I'm the happiest if you laughed. And that's what people, when they always come up to me, like that's what they enjoy about the show most. So far, and today's show is not going to be our funniest show, but I do have a secondary excuse. It's not just the murders and executions in the cities of New York City, or the cities of America. It's also that I watched The New Naked Gun over the weekend, and it was literally the unfunniest, possibly worst movie I have ever seen in my life, and it actually degraded my sense of humor. So it's not just that we're talking about, you know, people being executed in Charlotte and Philadelphia here, and soon Chicago. It's that my sense of humor has actually been affected, and I don't know what we're going to have to bust out the whoopee cushion this afternoon and just figure out something here. But okay, so let's dive back into the cities because, and again, why is it always blue cities that this is happening? The big story around all this has been Chicago, where Trump is trying to clean up Chicago, not only because of the illegals, but also because, and let's try to get the numbers from this past weekend, if they're up already. Can we get some numbers from Chicago this weekend? But it's not only the illegals, but it's because of we got the numbers already. It's 19 were shot this past weekend, 7 dead, just this past weekend. Why do we not care about any of those people? Anywho, Trump's trying to clean it up, which of course means that the Democrats and the progressives and all the usuals are saying he's an authoritarian because he's trying to save some black people from getting killed, make sure people could go to Chick-fil-A, et cetera, et cetera. He's mean. So here's Trump smacking around a reporter. This is pretty great.
When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why would the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
Yeah, that's not war. That's common sense. He's getting better even. You know what I mean? Like there's a refreshingness always with him, but he's even getting better. Like his tolerance for these people's lowering, which I do think is good. But it's like the gall, the nerve as a reporter. You're going to war with Chicago. Okay, lady, you're a reporter. How many stories have you done on all of the people that have been killed in Chicago this year? If we could figure out what her name is, I would love to find her Twitter. Lady, did you tweet about the 7 people that were killed in Chicago this past weekend? And the 19 that were shot overall, so a couple of them will probably die too. Did you write any stories about that? But instead, the guy who's coming in to make the cities safer for the people of those cities, he's being painted as the bad guy. Now, of course, the real bad guy in this story, there's several of them. I would say Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, he's probably number one, but J.B. Pritzker he could be number one, I suppose. He's obviously the governor of Illinois. He's making the rounds because the Democrats don't know what to do, and I think he's going to likely run for president. I mean, it's going to be I don't even want to do that, but it's going to be Newsom and him and Mamdani. Oh, good God. Anyway, he went on what's it called? MSNBC. We're retards. What is it? MS Now. Okay, so he went on MS Now. And here he explains to Jen Psaki, who's I would say a fair arbiter when it comes to the news, that Trump actually, he's not sending in the National Guard to clean up the cities. It's because he's trying to steal an election or something.
It's a pretense. We know what it's about, and it has nothing to do with fighting crime. And it has, honestly, sending National Guard in has nothing to do with immigration either. What it has to do with is he's trying to set the stage for interference in the elections in 2026 and in 2028.
I know you've made that point before, and that made my ears perk up, and it should be alarming to anyone. What does that look like? Because it sounds like you're saying there's going to be military in the streets that are going to prevent people from participating in the elections. Is that it, or it's something else?
It could be that.
Well, that's pretty good. He just completely made up something and it made her ears perk. That's very exciting, Psaki. He completely made it up. You're telling me that Donald Trump right now is sending the National Guard to Chicago under the pretense of saving people's lives because you morons are actually basically exacerbating the killing by not doing anything about it or blaming the wrong people. I mean, it's not, you're actually actively making it worse, I would say. That somehow you've connected that to Donald Trump stealing the election. Like, we have done this. Get a new script. Bring in someone from Hollywood and workshop the thing. It's boring. No one's listening to it. It's just completely ridiculous. How about J.B. Pritzker? Yeah, I got one for you, J.B. I'm not a big J.B. fan, but I'll offer him a little advice on the show today. J.B., why don't you call up Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, and why do you say, boy, this Trump guy is so terrible, and he's sending the feds here and all this stuff, and it's just so terrible. How about, to prove that he's a bad dude, we clean up the cities for a couple days? Because if we clean up the cities for a couple days, if we actually have proper policing and everything, and then he sends them in, then it'll be pretty obvious. But no, you're not going to do that, because for whatever reason, you want dead black people. I don't know how to view it any other way. You don't care when these people are killed, and then someone tries to come in and fix it, and somehow they're the bad guy. And then that he makes up utterly out of thin air. But of course, it made Jen Psaki's ears perk that he's going to steal the election. Yes, Trump's going to send the soldiers to Chicago to steal the election because Chicago is known as such a... Tom Homan, who will play Tom Homan in the movie about Tom Homan called The Tom Homan Story. Here he went on Jake Tapper's funny little show and talked about how we are going to war with the criminal cartels.
Look, I think it's worth being taken out of context. If I said we're going to war with the criminal cartels. We're going to war with illegal aliens, public safety threats that rape children, that raped citizens, that committed armed robberies, that distribute narcotics that kill Americans. We're at war with the criminal cartels, and Governor Pritzker protects criminal, illegal alien, public safety threats every day in that state, along with Mayor Johnson. We proved that. The first week of the administration, I went to Chicago. I started an operation there. The first day, we arrested 9 sexual predators, most of them child rapists. We arrested 9 members of TDA. Several of those TDA members had a pistol, an illegal pistol with a switch on it, which makes that pistol fully automatic. We arrested 2 illegal aliens that had a homicide conviction. That was the first day in Chicago. So, President Trump and this administration, yeah, we're at war with the criminal cartels and those who want to murder and rape the American citizens. You damn right.
Okay, so you can see the sentence that you missed at the top that we cut into was Jake basically like, why are you using the word war? And it's like, you guys are always hung up on the wrong thing. Again, Jake, why don't you care? Jake Tapper, we could go back into your feed. Like, how many times did you tweet about the number of people who've been killed in Chicago this past weekend? Like over the last 5 years, how many times have you done it? I'm gonna guess 0. How many shows have you done on that? I'm gonna guess 0. But how many shows did you do promoting George Floyd and promoting BLM and all of those things, which was an utter fraud? BLM did not help one black life. They did not send one black person to school or anything else. The thing was a giant money laundering scheme that also happened to burn down a bunch of our cities. We did get some info on the fly here. The reporter that Trump was talking to, it's that Yamiche Alcindor, this chick. Maybe we get it doesn't matter, you don't need to see her. We've played videos of her before. She's NBC's Yamiche Alcindor, and Joseph did a little Googling. She did not post about the Charlotte stabbing. So didn't care about the Charlotte stabbing and seemingly very concerned. And she happens to be black. Again, I don't care, but she does not care about when black people are killed in Chicago. As it pertains to war, there's some interesting branding happening coming out of the White House. Listen to this. Breaking. The Department of Defense has changed to the Department of War. President Donald J. Trump just signed an executive order restoring the name of the Department of War, America First, Peace Through Strength. So look, everyone can have their own feelings on this. The Department of Defense. There's something nice about the word defense. It makes it seem like you're not on the attack. You're just here to defend people. Department of War, it's obviously a little more aggressive, but peace through strength is real. You could say this is just a bumper sticker thing. I don't think it makes that much of a difference, but I would say it's consistent with the messaging that is coming out of the Trump administration, which is basically that we're a serious country again. Don't screw with us if you're our enemy abroad. And if you're here and you're basically trying to, I don't know, execute people on the streets of Philadelphia in broad daylight, or trying to murder people in Chicago, or burn down Circuit City, like, you just can't do it anymore. Over on, I should correct myself from earlier, it is not MSN Now. It's not MS Now yet. They're going to do that at the end of the year. So we will figure out a better, funny way to talk about it. It's still MSNBC, apparently. And here's a guy, we've played videos of him before. He's usually crying. His name is Eddie Glaude. He's another one of these guys that goes on TV and cries all the time. And here he is ranting and raving that Trump changed the name because the administration just wants to be manly. Something that he doesn't seem to know a lot about, but all right.
But what he's reaching for, Chris, is an idea of the country that was at the heart of the Spanish-American War. The idea of the country that led to Guam and Puerto Rico being territories. The idea of the country that intervention in Cuba, that had us intervening in Haiti. We can go down the line. American imperialism, an empire of right. So you describe the country, you describe the Department of Defense as a Department of War because you're describing your intention, your wish, your pose, your posture. I think it's absolutely reflective of the nonsense of this administration and their desire to be manly men, if that makes sense.
It does.
I don't know. I'm just making this shit up. Does that make any sense? Like, there's nothing wrong with manly men. Actually, it's strong men who create good times, right? And then good times create weak men, and weak men create bad times. You all know the meme. But it's people like you that for some reason have demonized men. You've demonized fatherhood. You've demonized people that are responsible and everything else, because you guys seem to want us all to be broken and limp-wristed and on the verge of tears all the time, begging for daddy government to come in and spank you and say, "Thank you, sir, can I have another?" But I'm not into it, people. I am into coffee, though, and let's talk about 1775 coffee, and then we will talk about migration and other crazy people who are in our country trying to destroy it. Guys, let's be honest. Most coffee gives you that quick little jolt, and then what? A crash, jitters, that mid-morning brain fog, and before you know it, you're already pouring a second or third cup just to make it to lunchtime. But what if your coffee did more than just wake you up? What if it actually did something good for your body, something real, something lasting? Meet Rejuvenate Coffee. This isn't your average cup of joe. It starts with premium real Arabica beans, so yes, it tastes incredible. But what makes it special is what's inside, a powerful compound called CAAKG. Now, I know that sounds technical, but stick with me. CAAKG is backed by real science. It's been shown to support cellular energy, a healthy metabolism, and even healthy aging. Yeah, you heard that right. Your coffee could actually help you feel better, not just today, but 10 years from now. This isn't a gimmick. It's not a trend. It's a smart decision for people who take their health seriously and who want to feel focused, strong, and dialed in every single day. So if you care about how you feel, not just this morning, but long-term, Rejuvenate Coffee is for you. Head on over to 1775coffee.com/Rubin and order a bag of Rejuvenate Coffee today. Fuel your body, protect your future. Rejuvenate. All right, let's jump across the pond for a second, and then we'll get back to some of the people trying to destroy America. This from N Wokeness. Here's a good one. Shabana Mahmood, named as UK Home Secretary in charge of borders, police, and immigration. Well, okay, that seems fine, unless there is video of her basically saying stuff that doesn't seem very British. Do we have that kind of thing?
Islam, my own religion, like a lot of practicing Muslims, my faith is the most important thing in my life. It is the absolute driver of everything that I do. I feel a very strong calling of my own conscience, and my conscience calls me to God.
You know, the people that you see holding the English flag most of the time, down my neck of the woods, will be the EDL, and they are white and they are male and they're bad people, and they want to divide our communities from one another.
All right, so the new British Home Secretary is racist, we know that, and she puts Islam above everything else. Now, I have no problem with someone having their own faith, for the most part. I think there's some debates around how Islam fits into that. But someone, if you had a leader in America who says that Christianity or Judaism frames my faith. Well, you can very much see why that would fit into the American ethos, because we were based on Judeo-Christian values and because there is freedom baked into that, right? There's individual choice baked into that. Islam literally means submit. I don't think this woman is very, let's say, British actually in nature. Joseph, I think you might have moved one up for me. Did we skip one there? Oh no, sorry. But so now let's connect this to what's happening here in the United States, because we do have an issue that we don't know exactly what to do with as it pertains to some of these homegrown people. Last week, and there's an update on this story, but last week, listen to this also from Colin Rugg, new Dearborn Heights Police Department in Michigan becomes the first in the country to offer a police patch in Arabic. The patch was designed by Officer Emily Murdoch, who created it to reflect the honor and diversity of our community. The Dearborn Heights Police Department is proud to share a new optional patch that our officers may wear as part of their uniform. By incorporating Arabic script alongside English, the patch represents unity, respect, and our shared commitment to service. Our officers proudly serve all members of our community, and this new design is another way we to continue to celebrate the rich cultures that make our city unique. Now, of course, if you were, I love how it's an incredible Orwellian thing that they do. They're telling you about diversity and tolerance and all of those things, but they're not going to throw a little Hebrew on that thing, are they? And I'm pretty sure that there would be no reason for that, and they shouldn't, right? Why would you be putting Arabic on your American police uniforms, whether it's optional or not? Well, there was enough backlash to it, and apparently they are not going to do it. But Dearborn, Michigan is a hotbed. That's Rashida Tlaib's district. It is a hotbed of this Islamist ideology, and we are going to have to figure out what America is going to do with that. Now let's connect this to something happening over in Boston. This story is absolutely wild. There is a woman by the name of Tania Fernandes Anderson, and she was the first illegal immigrant elected to Boston City Council. I will say that again in case it didn't make sense. She is an illegal immigrant and was the first of such to be elected to the Boston City Council. Well, back in May, she pled guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of theft concerning a program receiving federal funds. It turns out that she took a $7,000 kickback and pocketed the cash in the city hall bathroom. It was literally an envelope with cash handed to her. She got exposed. She's an illegal immigrant. She shouldn't be here anyway. Anyway, she's out there talking now, big press conference, and yes, she's blaming racism.
I'm not that important. And I hope that after this, you guys will stop talking about me, because I'm actually an introvert and it hurts when you put me on the news. And for Boston Herald and all of the folks who've try to create stories, try to verify your facts. The reason why I don't talk to you is because you never report accurately on Black people. You're always causing some sort of trouble. And you know what? The responsibility really is not on Boston Herald or ABC or Fox 25. The responsibility should be on the Black community. We need to create Black media so that we can actually be able to create a fair story and report accurately on Black people.
All right, so it's so perfect. She's an illegal immigrant on the city council. She should be kicked out of the country immediately. Now she happens to be Black, apparently. She's Muslim, so again, the intersectional calculator, they don't know what to do with this. She then immediately plays the victim when she gets caught doing this, right? She's the victim immediately. I don't want to be in the news. Well, maybe you shouldn't have taken $7,000 cash as a kickback. Like maybe you shouldn't have done that. And then what is she connected to? That somehow the media is not good to people like her, so we need Black-owned media? Oh, I'm sorry, do you have... Oh my. I'd like to retract everything I just said right there. She's a lovely woman and she has my full endorsement for President of the United States. Zohran Mamdani is the socialist / I would say jihadi adjacent person who is going to take over New York City and absolutely destroy it. And if you live there, you have like a very small window to get out, and please don't come to Florida. Here he is saying how he gets asked if, some of his tax policies, like trying to destroy the rich, if that's going to be bad, and that, people are fleeing already, and like, does he really think that really makes sense? And well, yeah, he does.
Now, you've been running on the platform of affordability fixes for New Yorkers, like a rent freeze you mentioned, free buses, city-owned groceries that made you popular with some working New Yorkers, but not so popular with real estate developers and the financial class.
We have a number of New Yorkers who are doing quite well. The top 1% of New York City earns $1 million or more a year. And my vision is not one where they leave, it is one where they stay. It is
How do you get them to stay?
In part by showing them that asking them to pay more in taxes would increase even their quality of life.
Well, that's bullshit, but you can do it. And I get it. Your suit fits and you whisper, and they seem to like that. That's part of the lefty thing. If you're on PBS, you have to kind of whisper when you're talking. I don't know what that's all about. It does not matter whether the 1% make $1 million a year or more. What right do you have to take more of their stuff? This is why every sane person is fleeing New York City. If you live in New York, you're already taxed by the state, you're then taxed by the city, and you are losing over 50% of your income. On top of the fact that your entire thing, all the socialists, their entire thing is class warfare. So there will be more executions on the streets. There will be, what was the movie? Gangs of New York, or what was the last Batman, Dark Knight Rises style things where they just attack people on the Upper East Side and rip them out by the collars of their shirts. Of course there will be, because you're saying those people are bad, they earn. And then of course, this thing, oh, it's rent free and free buses and all that. It's just the easiest thing to say. It's just easy to say. And then I love how Sharpton, who's just the worst kind of race huckster on the planet, so of course he has a job at that retarded, I need a better word than I'm over the word retard now too. That's how retarded these people are, that even bringing back retard is old to me now. But that he's like, and the real estate people don't like you. Oh, those mean real estate people who build things, those people who build buildings and build places for people to work and live in, they're the problem. They're the problem. So the Democrats realize they have a huge problem here, an actual problem. And the actual problem is inmates running the asylum, lunatics, socialism, Marxism, all of the bad ideas, a little dash of criminality and rape and illegals and jihad. It ain't great. It's not, if you're tasting this soup, you're going, something's not right with the soup, okay? So they have to pretend that they had nothing to do with any of the things that they've done. Here's here's Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama, explaining that the Democrat plan is that they want a secure border. So, okay, yeah.
I think it was one of the main reasons that we lost the 2024 election was that we let hundreds of thousands, millions of people stream across the border. So what is the Democratic plan to show people that we're serious about this problem?
Well, we definitely have to be clear that we believe that we should have a secure border. That's first and foremost. And I think we've repeatedly endeavored to make that clear throughout this Congress. We were slow to act as an administration and as a party on the southern border crisis, and it hurt us not simply with traditional Republican voters or swing voters, but in some segments of our own base communities and in communities of color, including right here.
Communities of color, nobody gives a shit. He's just broken. He is a broken down version 1 of the android. That communities of color, he's just not particularly good. We were slow to act. You guys were in charge. You guys opened up the border. You guys did all of this. We were slow to act. Man, they will ruin everything and pretend that they had nothing to do with it. We'll get to more on people that ruined an awful lot and pretend that they have nothing to do with it in just a second. But first, Rumble Premium. This episode is brought to you by Rumble Premium, the home of free speech and exclusive content from voices that matter. With Rumble Premium, you get ad-free viewing, access to exclusive shows, and premium features across the platform. We're talking about Steven Crowder's Mug Club, Tim Pool's Timcast, and Russell Brand's Raw Commentary, plus tons of other bold creators you won't find anywhere else. Whether it's breaking news, real talk, or the content that challenges the narrative, Rumble Premium puts you in the front row. Support creators who actually say what they mean and mean what they say. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin to join today. That's rumble.com/premium/Rubin, because the truth shouldn't come with a filter. All right, so people who get things wrong or lie about things and then they pretended to have nothing to do with it. Perfect segue here. You remember a video we showed you a couple days ago? It was former head of the CDC, Michelle Walensky, and she was like, nobody ever, in any of the meetings, nobody ever brought up the fact that the vaccine might have an efficacy problem. Nobody said that there might be variants. Like, again, you're the experts of the experts, and you just don't think of the question that the third grader might have thought of. Well, it gets even crazier with this. Here is former White House coronavirus response coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, who served under Donald Trump. Here she is admitting that they were lying about the efficacy of the vaccine.
Well, I think we all know how important the COVID vaccine was. It was scientifically, critically studied to prevent severe disease. I think where people started to get confused is when we started to make potential claims that the vaccine did more than what it was studied to actually show. And remember, all of those original studies, we didn't test patients unless they had symptoms. We only looked for disease. And so we don't know how many people were asymptomatic. We don't know about protection against infection. What we did know about is protection against severe disease.
Well, lady, you're just not very good at your job, and you should be nowhere, just like Walensky. You should never be anywhere near public health again. Why did you make those claims? Why did you make those claims? Because then once you made those claims that this shit works, well, then a whole bunch of Muppets repeated it. Muppet clip, go.
Not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal.
We can kind of almost see the end. We're vaccinating so very fast. Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
Getting vaccinated and getting a booster shot when eligible can save your life and protect you and your family and friends from getting seriously ill and spreading infection.
What do you think the probability is? 80%?
Personally, I think it's 100%. I think that there's a reduction in transmission.
Right. COVID, if you have these vaccinations.
We have all the vaccines we need. We just need our people to take it. A, for their own protection, for the protection of their family, but also to break the chain of transmission. You want to be a dead end to the virus. So when the virus gets to you, you stop it. You don't allow it to use you as the stepping stone to the next person.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
That's my favorite one of all of them. Of the entire COVID fiasco, the entire charade and complete lie that was pushed on all of us, that episode of Rachel Maddow where we know you turned out to be wrong. Why didn't I know it? Makes you wonder. RFK, a man who has come in and he is, just tried to get Americans to think about their health again, maybe work out, get a little sun, eat right. He is hated by the left. He's hated by all the politicians who take all the money from Big Pharma, like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and everything else. And he's also trying to figure out why the hell did we push this thing through and do all these ridiculous things as per masks, and when you're standing at a restaurant, you have to wear it, and when you're sitting, you don't, all of the nonsense. And basically, he is now at a congressional hearing saying everything that we heard during COVID, it was pretty much all a lie.
We were lied to about everything. We were lied to about natural immunity. We were lied to about, we were told again and again the vaccines would prevent transmission, they'd prevent infection. It wasn't true. They knew it from the start it wasn't true because that's what the animal studies and the clinical trials showed. We were told that there was science behind cloth masks. The CDC allowed the teachers union to write the order closing our schools, which hurt working people all over the country, and then pretend it was science-based.
Think about the last part there. The teachers union wrote the thing to close the schools, not the CDC. The fabric masks, all of the stuff. And I get it. Some of this is old hat, and you're probably like, Dave, why are you showing this? But the point is, if we don't ever really realize what happened there, then whatever the next thing is, whether it's the next race war or it's a terrorist attack or the freaking alien invasion or whatever it will be, we'll just fall for the lies again. Not us, but a lot of people we know. That's what's going to happen. This is a really spectacular moment. Listen to this ridiculous question by this clown, Ron Wyden, the way he frames this thing. It's so absurdly biased. It's like, dude, pretend for a second, and then watch as RFK just levels him.
How many preventable child deaths
are an acceptable sacrifice for enacting an agenda that I think is fundamentally cruel and defies common sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I get a reply? Or, Senator, you've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing. You never asked the question why it's happening. Why is this happening? Today, for the first time in 20 years, we learned that infant mortality has increased in our country. It's not because I came in here. It's because of what happened during the Biden administration that we're going to end.
I'm going to let Senator Wyden respond briefly to that, and then we're not going to go over like we just did.
This committee on a bipartisan basis. Colleagues, my cabinet secretary says that we have no interest in chronic care. Mr. Secretary,
Mr. Chairman, could we have regular order, please?
We are in the process of turning around the Medicare program with the chronic care bill that Chairman Hatch, when he was chairman in this committee.
What a pathetic buffoon. I mean, that's a great answer by RFK. None of you people cared about this at all. You didn't care about the rates of autism. You didn't care about the rates of obesity. You didn't care about the rates of depression or suicide with young people. You didn't care about any of this stuff. Then a guy comes in and says, I'm going to fix some of this. I'm going to address some of it. And you all hate him, even though he was a member of your party literally a year and a half ago. He has the Kennedy name attached to him, and he was running as a freaking Democrat. But now he's in there working with Donald Trump, trying to get seed oils out and get the literal poisons out of children's cereals, and at least think about what's going on with vaccines. He's not forcing anyone, as we played that ridiculous video last week with Elizabeth Warren, he's not forcing anyone to not be vaxxed. He's just saying the CDC doesn't have to recommend all of these things that aren't proven. So Wyden, you did nothing about these things for 20, 25 years, as he points out, and you guys just all suck. They just, you know what it reminds me of? Remember when Elon bought Twitter? And suddenly the next day there were like hundreds of articles of there's a child porn problem on Twitter. Well, child porn is a problem. You're right. And apparently it's on Twitter. That is a problem. You guys didn't write those articles before he bought it. So why is it that you waited until a guy that you don't like, who you used to love, but then he, veers away from you politically, he now does something, and now suddenly you're really worried about child porn, or now suddenly you're worried about all of these health issues. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, my personal favorite health expert is Chris Christie, and he went on a TV show to talk about RFK.
I mean, let's face it. You looked at that appearance before Congress, and it just confirms what all of us around this table have known for decades. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a foolish man, full of foolish and vapid ideas. And that was on display again this week in front of Congress.
They've all known that for decades, because a lot of those people probably loved him about 2 years ago. But I do take health advice from Chris Christie, that he seems healthy and like the type of person that I would take health advice from. For those of you listening on the audio podcast, you can guess what we might have shown right there. A guy that I do respect and listen to when it comes to health is Callie Means, who I've had on the show. And here he is talking to Jesse Waters that there's an awakening as it pertains to health, that we're starting to realize, boy, we better take care of ourselves, and perhaps our system was not set up to make us healthy. So get some skin in the game and stop doing whatever the high hell it is that Chris Christie's doing.
There's something much deeper, much more spiritual happening. Bobby Kennedy and this unlikely, miraculous coalescing with President Trump, I think has awoken something very special. There is an awakening in this country. People around the kitchen table, people on farms, people in classrooms, people are awakening to the root cause of chronic disease. There is a spiritual force happening in this country. It cannot go back in the bottle. The Democrats do not know what to do. Everybody watching, there is something special happening in there. Bobby Kennedy is fighting. You can see that. We need to keep supporting him and President Trump.
This really is just one of those where it's just like, it's so freaking easy to figure out who the bad guys and good guys are, right? Like you have Bobby just saying, guys, let's think about these things. Let's try to make some sense of it. Why did autism go crazy? And why are we so fat? And could we work out more? And then there's this entire machine that locked us up, and kept kids in quarantine away from their families, and and don't go to grandma's funeral, and all of the horrific things, and they're still pretending they're the good guys after all of this. And what ultimately it all boils down to, I think Callie is right in some sense. There's a spiritual awakening. I think there is absolutely. I've had my own, I would say, over the last couple of years as it pertains to health and what you're eating, and really think about those things and all of that, right? We put up videos on what I've been eating and the glow up and all that stuff and my workout routine. Like, it is deeply connected to the haywire things that happened under COVID. But the truth is that the answer is not going to come from the government. Even if Trump and Bobby and all these people, they do everything perfectly. At the end of the day, they can't force you, right? They can't, well, I suppose in some dystopian future they probably could, but they can't force you to take care of yourself, right? But you have to start taking care of yourself. So the best thing the government can do is create the conditions for freedom. That is something that the founders knew all about, right? The Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. You create the laboratory of democracy through federalism so states can do things differently, and then people can decide where they want to live. In Florida here, our Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo, is going to have an end to vaccine mandates. This has Jake Tapper very upset.
You're making a decision that no other Surgeon General in the United States has done. It goes against what's recommended by every top medical organization, including the AMA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Boston Center on Emerging Infectious Diseases. It goes against what parents in Florida want. So all of these people are wrong, and you are right.
Again, sort of casting it in that way is not what I would do. Is not how I look at it.
It's a fact.
You look at the last. I would say what I would say is that, my history, if you will, is I share what I believe is the right thing to do, whether it's popular or not. I've been doing it for years. What I'm saying is that it's an issue of right and wrong in terms of whether parents should be able to have ultimate authority over what happens to their kids' bodies. And in terms of outbreaks, we do have outbreaks in Florida, just like every state, and we manage those. So there are no new special procedures that need to be made.
Right, but you're talking about doing something that no other state has done.
We manage them just as always.
Gosh, doing something that no other state has done. You mean making a decision for yourself? You mean an elected official, the governor, who brings in the Surgeon General, appoints him, the people choose it, and then he says, I'm going to let you guys choose. And that Jake does, and the parents of Florida, well, I'm a parent in Florida, I like the guy, so you're just making up stuff, right? Like, I don't know what all the parents in Florida think. It's probably a panoply of views, but I suspect actually that most parents in Florida lean a little bit more to where DeSantis and Ladapo are than to where you are, Tapper. And by the way, a good answer, Joe Ladapo, next time you go on one of those shows and he rifles off a whole bunch of institutions that disagree with him apparently, what you want to say is, hey, how many of them got anything right as it pertains to COVID? Did any of them say masks didn't work? Did any of them warn about myocarditis, et cetera, et cetera? So again, you guys get it. It's just more, today's show, the theme is just more and more of let's just see through the game so you can see the world clearly, and then you will not become as hysterical as, say, a genderqueer jihadi or a Democrat in Congress. Let's jump over to how the mainstream media is losing that grip. Former Trump economic advisor Stephen Moore, not Stephen Miller, different guys, but Stephen Moore was on Real Time with Bill Maher on Friday night, and they got into a bit around vaccines and government overreach and all of those things. And, Bill obviously has woken up to a lot of this stuff, and I thought Stephen made a good point here. Let's throw to that little Monday with Maher bumper.
But I also believe, Bill, that the reason there's been a bit of a backlash against vaccines is because the government was forcing people to take vaccines.
Correct.
And that is something I'm against.
And also not putting any stock in natural immunity.
Yeah.
Even if you had the disease, you still had to get the vaccine, and also giving it to 2-year-olds who outrageous.
Yes.
So there was stuff to be done. Do any of us really think that putting kids on all these drugs when they're young doesn't have an effect? That isn't part of the problem with why there are school shootings and kids doing crazy things? Of course it is. I remember Ariana Huffington coming on our show the first year talking about Prozac. That was the issue that made her famous. Right. She was right then, it's right now. We put kids on drugs way too early, way too often, and then we wonder why they're using street drugs when they're 20. Because they never knew what sobriety was.
They definitely would have put me on Ritalin if they'd had Ritalin back then, because I was bouncing out the walls.
Isn't it great what these crazy people have done to Bill Maher? I mean, not only have you taken the liberal and woken him up, and now he's, breaking bread with Trump and all of those things, but you take a guy who loves his substances. He loves his booze and his weed and God knows what else, and you have him there, in essence, defending sobriety. He's defending the idea that you don't drug these kids, but of course, why would you think you watch any commercial on television for any prescription drug? You have restless leg syndrome? Well, we'll give you a pill. And next thing you know, you're going to have thoughts of suicide and diarrhea and vomiting. And then suddenly, you're like, boy, I wish I had that restless leg syndrome. We all know this, right? Every one of these psychotropic drugs. Do you have a imaginary, fictitious cartoon cloud following you throughout the day? Get on Prozac. And then when you get on Prozac, then they tell you got to get on the other one, then the other one, and the other. It's like, you think this might be doing something to people? And then if you do it to kids, and then we wonder what's going on here. So it's super interesting to me that he's then connected that to school shootings. Because yes, it is far more of a mental health crisis than of anything to do with guns. If you take a mentally healthy person, whether they are young or old, and you hand them a gun, they would not go into a school and randomly shoot people. But okay, so again, the whole show really today was framed around the disconnect between what we're told by the machine and what we're learning in new media for all its flaws. You may remember this clip. This was Elon on Rogan a while back talking about just that.
The whole thing's very crazy. The media is incredibly partisan. They're not. Almost all the media is, left shifted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird if you talk to somebody who gets all their information from what I call legacy media. They're living in a different world.
Yeah.
Than if they say are listening to your podcast or getting news from X or just if it's kind of wild.
It is very wild.
It's like they're living in an alternate.
And to really bring this show full circle, what was the start of today's show? The start of today's show was about a beautiful 23-year-old, happens to be Ukrainian refugee, who was killed on a bus in Charlotte by a guy who happens to be black, just murdered in cold blood. And then what happened? We showed you the mainstream media, ABC, NBC, Washington Post, blah, 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 blah. They did not write one story about it for days. My guess is it'll start trickling out today, because then they do the airlock thing, and then it's sort of like Biden with dementia. There's an airlock, and then eventually something happens that breaks the airlock, and then suddenly we're allowed to talk about it. But that's exactly what his point was right there. So if before the airlock gets broken, if you're somebody that's on X or wherever, and by the way, I'm not even telling everyone to be on X, because it can be a total cesspool too, and that's I guess like a sidebar to all of this. But the point is, if you're someone that gets media in a new way, in a newish way, versus you're someone who just gets it in the old way, you will now believe two completely different things. And how do we connect those two things together? That will be the great challenge. I will keep doing it. Reminder, guys, Australia, I will be in you soon enough in October. DaveRubin.com/events. If you would like to join us, special guests, all sorts of crazy things, big knives, big insects, all of it. Post-game show, 30 seconds, RubinReport.locals.com. Thank you for watching. More tomorrow.
Yeah, it is. No, there's no way to turn the air on.